I, 52F, have been dealing with a situation involving my son Jonah, 28M, that has made me question everything. This is a long story, so please bear with me. It all started when I met Daniel, 54M, at a friend's wedding where he was the best man. I had just started my career as a junior accountant and wasn't looking for a relationship, but Daniel was charming and persistent. After dating for 2 years, we got married in a small ceremony. My parents had died in a car accident when I was 19, so it was just my closest friends and Daniel's family at the wedding. Everything seemed perfect at first. Daniel had a good job in sales, we bought a small starter home, and were planning our future together. His family, especially his mother, was very controlling, but I tried my best to get along with them. They always made comments about how I wasn't good enough for Daniel since I came from a modest background while they were quite well off. Still, Daniel always defended me and I thought we were happy. Then I got pregnant with Jonah. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but we were excited. At least I was. Daniel started becoming distant around my 4th month. He would stay late at work, miss my doctor's appointments, and barely helped prepare the nursery. His mother kept making snide comments about how I had trapped her son with a baby. I tried talking to Daniel about it, but he would just say he was stressed about work and providing for a family. When Jonah was born, Daniel seemed to come around for a bit. He was there for the delivery in the first few weeks. But then he started staying out later and later. Sometimes he wouldn't come home for days, claiming he had to travel for work. I was struggling with a newborn, trying to manage everything alone. I had to quit my accounting job because we couldn't afford childcare and Daniel was never home to help. When Jonah was 6 months old, I woke up one morning to find Daniel gone. All his clothes were missing and there was just a note on the kitchen counter. He wrote that he wasn't ready to be a father, couldn't handle the responsibility, and needed to find himself. He said not to try to contact him. When I tried calling, his number was blocked. His work told me he had quit 2 weeks ago. He had emptied our joint account, leaving me with just $800. His family turned completely hostile. His mother spread rumors that I had baby-trapped Daniel and driven him away with my neediness. They refused to help or even see Jonah. I was completely alone with a baby, no job, and barely any savings. I had to sell our house quickly at a loss just to have some money to survive on. I moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment and started looking for work. It was hard finding a job after the gap in my resume. No accounting firm would hire me. Finally, I got a job as a receptionist at a dental office during the day. The pay wasn't enough, so I also started waitressing at night. My elderly neighbor Martha was a godsend. She offered to watch Jonah while I worked. She had never had children of her own and treated Jonah like a grandson. Those early years were exhausting. I would work at the dental office from 8 to 5, rush home to feed Jonah, then work at the diner from 7 midnight. Martha would put Jonah to bed and stay until I got home. On weekends I would pick up extra shifts while trying to spend quality time with Jonah. There were many nights I cried myself to sleep from exhaustion, but looking at Jonah's face gave me strength to keep going. As Jonah grew up, he naturally started asking about his father. Around age 5, he came home crying because kids at school teased him about not having a dad. I never badmouthed Daniel but told Jonah the truth in age-appropriate ways, that his father wasn't ready to be a parent and had left. Jonah seemed to accept it, but I could tell it bothered him, especially during father-daughter dances or school events where other dads were present. Despite everything, Jonah and I developed an incredibly close bond. He was such a bright, sweet kid. He would make me cards and breakfast in bed for Mother's Day, telling me I was the best mom and dad. I worked hard to give him as normal a childhood as possible. I saved every extra penny for his future, never buying anything for myself. Martha taught him to play chess and would take him to the library while I worked. Jonah did well in school and was active in the computer club. When he was 17, he got accepted to a good college with a partial scholarship. I was so proud. All our struggles had been worth it. I took out loans to cover the remaining tuition, telling Jonah not to worry about the debt. He graduated with honors and got a great job at a tech company, making more money than I ever had. That's when everything changed. Jonah started becoming distant and would barely call or visit. When I asked what was wrong, he would say he was just busy with work. Then last year, he finally told me he had been in contact with Daniel for the past 2 years. Apparently Daniel had found Jonah on Facebook and sent him a long message apologizing, saying he had grown up and wanted to build a relationship. Jonah started spending all his free time with Daniel and his new family. Daniel had remarried and had 2 other kids, a fact that felt like a knife in my heart. He chose to be a father to them but not to Jonah. Still, I kept my feelings to myself, not wanting to come between them if Jonah was happy. But it got worse. Jonah started spending holidays with Daniel instead of me. The final straw was when Jonah told me that Daniel had explained his side of the story, that I had been too clingy and demanding back then. Daniel told Jonah that I had suffocated him with constant needs and guilt trips about providing for us. Jonah said he was starting to see that maybe if I hadn't been so needy, his father wouldn't have left. He even suggested I get therapy for my dependency issues. I was completely shocked. After 27 years of sacrificing everything for Jonah, he chose to believe the lies of a man who had abandoned us. I tried explaining my side, but Jonah wouldn't listen. He said he needed space for me to build a relationship with his father without my toxic influence. Then he announced he was quitting his job and moving across the country to be closer to Daniel. Just like his father had done, Jonah blocked me on everything. I was completely heartbroken but decided to focus on myself. I finally went back to school for accounting certifications and got a better job. Martha helped me through the depression of losing Jonah. I was just starting to rebuild my life when Jonah showed up at my door last week. Apparently the tech company he moved to had massive layoffs and he lost his job. Daniel had encouraged Jonah to quit his previous stable job with promises of helping him start his own business. But now Daniel was refusing to help him since he wasn't running a charity. Jonah had burned through his savings and needed to move back in with me until he found something new. The worst part was how he acted like nothing had happened. He just expected me to welcome him with open arms after he abandoned me for Daniel and believed his lies. I refused. I told him he had made his choice when he chose Daniel over me, and I wasn't his backup plan when things got tough. Jonah got angry and said I was being petty and cruel. He brought up how I had always taught him to help family. I told him he clearly didn't consider me family anymore when he sided with Daniel. He stormed off calling me heartless and manipulative, the same words Daniel had used about me. Some mutual friends are saying I'm being too harsh and should help my son since he's going through a hard time. But I spent 27 years of my life dedicated to Jonah only for him to throw me away for the man who abandoned us. Now he only wants me when he needs something. Ida for refusing to help him? Update 1: Things have gotten way more complicated since my last post. The situation with Jonah has snowballed into something I never expected. After Jonah stormed off that day, he apparently started telling everyone his version of events. Several of my co-workers and old friends reached out to say Jonah had contacted them. He was painting me as a bitter, controlling mother who couldn't handle him having a relationship with his father. He told them I was trying to punish him for daring to get close to Daniel. One of my oldest friends, Sarah, called me in tears. Jonah had messaged her saying I had poisoned him against Daniel his whole life, making up stories to make his father look bad. According to Jonah, Daniel had tried reaching out multiple times when he was younger, but I had prevented any contact. This was completely false. Daniel had blocked us everywhere and moved states away. But Jonah was convinced I was the villain in this story. Several family friends started messaging me saying I should forgive Jonah since he's still young and was probably being manipulated by Daniel. Some suggested I should be grateful Jonah wanted a relationship with his father at all, saying it was better late than never. These were the same people who had seen me struggle as a single mom, who knew how Daniel had abandoned us. Their sudden change in attitude hurt almost as much as Jonah's betrayal. I was trying to process all this when Martha called me last week. Martha is 82 now but still sharp as ever. She was very upset, her voice shaking as she told me about a visit Jonah had paid her a few months before he moved to be with Daniel. Apparently, he had shown up at her house asking questions about when he was a baby and about Daniel leaving us. Martha said she had been happy at first, thinking Jonah wanted to understand his history better. She told him everything, how devastated I was when Daniel left, how I would come home at midnight exhausted from working 2 jobs but still take time to rock Jonah to sleep. She told him about the times I had to choose between buying food and paying bills, how I would eat less so Jonah could have enough. Martha had helped where she could, but she was living on a small pension herself. Then Martha told him something I had kept secret all these years. When Jonah was 2 years old, Daniel had actually come back. It was a rainy night in October. He showed up at our apartment drunk. He was crying, saying he had made a huge mistake and missed us. He begged for another chance, promising to be the father Jonah deserved. I was young and still in love with him, so I let him stay. For 2 days, Daniel played with Jonah, bought him toys, and acted like the perfect father. He promised to pay back all the child support he owed and help us move to a better apartment. I had been saving every extra dollar I made for 3 years, putting aside $3,000 for Jonah's future. It wasn't much, but it represented countless extra shifts and skipped meals. Daniel saw me counting it one night when I was planning to open a college fund for Jonah. The 3rd morning, I woke up to find Daniel gone again. This time he had taken all the money with him. He left another note saying he was sorry but he needed it for a fresh start. I was too ashamed to tell anyone what had happened. I filed a police report, but they said it would be hard to prove since I had willingly let him into our home. I worked even harder to rebuild our savings, picking up extra weekend shifts while Martha watched Jonah. When Martha told Jonah this story, his reaction shocked her. He accused her of lying to make his father look bad. He said Daniel had already warned him that people would try to turn him against his father with fake stories. He told Martha she should be ashamed of herself for making up lies about a man she barely knew. Martha was deeply hurt. She had helped raise Jonah for years, treating him like the grandson she never had. Now he was calling her a liar to defend a man who had abandoned him. I was furious when I heard this. Daniel wasn't content just poisoning Jonah against me, he was making Jonah doubt everyone who had actually been there for him his whole life. Martha was in tears telling me this, saying she felt like she had lost her grandson. She kept apologizing for telling me, saying she didn't want to add to my pain but felt I should know. That's when I decided to do something I should have done years ago. After Daniel stole our savings, I had filed a police report. I also had letters from Daniel's first wife warning me about him. She had reached out after seeing our wedding announcement in the local paper. She warned me that Daniel had done the same thing to her, leaving her and their daughter, taking their savings. I had ignored her warning, thinking Daniel had changed. I kept these documents all these years, hidden away in an old box because looking at them was too painful. I spent hours digging through my storage unit until I found everything. The police report detailed the theft of the savings. The letters from Daniel's first wife described his pattern of behavior, the charm, the promises, the sudden changes, the theft, the abandonment. There were also some bounced child support checks from when I had briefly tried to get Daniel to help support Jonah. I scanned everything and emailed it all to Jonah with no message attached. Let the documents speak for themselves. He hasn't responded directly to me, but Martha called yesterday to tell me Jonah had come to see her. He broke down crying and apologized for calling her a liar. She said he seemed shaken by the evidence, finally seeing the truth about his father. I don't know what will happen next. Part of me hopes this will open Jonah's eyes to who Daniel really is. But another part is still so hurt that Jonah so easily believed the worst about me and Martha, while giving Daniel the benefit of every doubt. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. I'm trying to stay strong and focus on healing myself, whatever Jonah decides to do next. Update 2: I wasn't planning to post again, but something major happened that I need to get off my chest. 2 weeks ago, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Jonah's girlfriend Jenna, 26F, someone I had never met since Jonah cut contact before introducing us. She sounded hesitant but said she felt I deserved to know what was really going on with Jonah. According to Jenna, she met Jonah 6 months ago through work, right after he moved to be closer to Daniel. She said Jonah was different then, confident and excited about starting fresh near his father. Daniel had convinced Jonah that he could help him start his own tech consulting business. Jonah had been doing well at his previous job, but Daniel said he was wasting his potential working for others. Jenna told me how Daniel would take Jonah to fancy restaurants and business meetings, introducing him as his successful son. He promised to connect Jonah with his high-level business contacts and convinced Jonah that with Daniel's connections and Jonah's tech skills, they could build something amazing. Jonah was so eager to make up for lost time with his father that he believed everything. When Jonah received his year-end bonus of $50,000 from his old job, Daniel suggested he invested in their joint venture. Jonah agreed without hesitation. Then Daniel convinced him to cash out his 401k, saying it was better to invest in their own business than let others manage his money. All told, Jonah handed over nearly $120,000 to Daniel. After seeing the police report and letters I sent, Jonah started having doubts. He tried asking Daniel for more details about their business plan and the contracts Daniel claimed to be negotiating. Daniel would get angry and accuse Jonah of not trusting him, saying he was acting just like me, always questioning and doubting. Jonah was torn between his suspicions and his desperate desire to believe in his father. The truth came out 3 weeks ago. Jonah went to meet one of the supposed business contacts Daniel had mentioned. The man had no idea what Jonah was talking about. He knew Daniel from gambling at the casino where he worked. It turned out Daniel had a serious gambling problem and had used Jonah's money to pay off casino debts. There was no business, no contracts, no plans. It had all been a scam to get Jonah's money. Jenna said when Jonah confronted Daniel, things got ugly. Daniel dropped his caring father act completely. He told Jonah he was pathetic and desperate, just like me. When Jonah demanded his money back, Daniel laughed and said he should thank him for teaching him a valuable lesson about trust. Then he told Jonah not to contact him or his real family again. Just like that, he discarded Jonah for the second time. The worst part was that Daniel had already warned his wife and other kids about Jonah, telling them he was unstable and trying to extort money from them. When Jonah tried reaching out to his half-siblings, they blocked him. Daniel had poisoned them against Jonah before Jonah could even tell his side. Jenna said Jonah has been spiraling since then. He lost his new job because he had been distracted by everything with Daniel and missed some major deadlines. His savings are gone, his career is damaged, and he's had to face that his father never really wanted him, just his money. She said he spends most nights drinking and talking about what a fool he was to believe Daniel over me. According to Jenna, Jonah wants to apologize but is too ashamed to face me. She said he keeps reading the letters from Daniel's first wife, seeing the pattern he refused to see before. Daniel had done this multiple times, charm his way into people's lives, take what he could get, then discard them. Jonah was just his latest victim. Jenna asked if I would consider talking to Jonah. She said he's hit rock bottom Daniel and really needs his mom. Part of me wanted to rush to help him like I always have. But another part remembered how quickly he had turned on me, how easily he believed Daniel's lies about me being controlling and manipulative. He had thrown away 27 years of love and sacrifice because Daniel spun a good story. I told Jenna I needed time to think. She understood but asked me to remember that Jonah was a victim of Daniel's manipulation too. Before hanging up, she mentioned something that stuck with me. Jonah keeps the Mother's Day cards he made me as a kid on his nightstand now. He reads them when he's drunk, crying about how he threw away the one parent who truly loved him. I'm still processing everything. The mother in me wants to protect Jonah from more pain. But the woman who spent nearly 3 decades putting everyone else first needs to protect herself too. I honestly don't know what to do. Update 3. After my last update, I spent weeks thinking about what to do. Martha suggested I hear Jonah out at least once, saying everyone deserves a chance to apologize. I finally agreed to meet Jonah at a coffee shop, neutral ground where we could talk without pressure. When I arrived, I barely recognized him. The confident, well-dressed son who had looked down on me months ago was gone. Jonah looked tired and much older, wearing wrinkled clothes and seeming almost scared to meet my eyes. As soon as I sat down, he broke down crying. Other Daniel started staring but he couldn't stop apologizing between sobs. Jonah admitted he had been a complete fool. He explained how desperately he had wanted a father figure in his life. When Daniel reached out, making grand promises about making up for lost time, Jonah had wanted to believe him so badly that he ignored all the red flags. He said Daniel knew exactly what buttons to push, praising Jonah's success while subtly suggesting I had held him back, talking about building a family business while implying I was keeping Jonah dependent on me. He confessed that deep down, he had known I was telling the truth. There were moments when Daniel's stories didn't add up, when his explanations about the past seemed inconsistent. But Jonah had pushed those doubts away because facing the truth meant accepting that his father had never really wanted him, just his money. The hardest part was listening to Jonah describe how Daniel had manipulated him into giving up his entire savings. Daniel had started small, borrowing a few thousand here and there, always paying it back promptly to build trust. Then came the big investment opportunity, the promises of making Jonah a partner in the family business. By the time Jonah realized it was all a scam, his money was gone and so was Daniel. Jonah asked if he could move back home while he gets back on his feet. He said Jenna had been supportive but they had only been dating a few months and it was too soon to move in together. He promised to get a job immediately and pay me rent. The way he was almost begging reminded me of when he was little and would promise to clean his room if he could stay up late. But I had to protect myself. I told Jonah I forgave him, holding on to anger would only hurt me more. But forgiveness didn't mean everything could go back to how it was. The trust between us was broken. When he had chosen Daniel, he hadn't just rejected me as a mother, he had rejected every sacrifice I had made, every extra shift I had worked, every meal I had skipped so he could have enough. Instead, I offered him a compromise. I would help him find an affordable apartment and loan him enough for the security deposit. He could pay me back when he was stable again. I also had some contacts from my accounting work who might be able to help him find a job. Jonah agreed it was more than fair, though I could see he was disappointed. Jonah has started therapy to deal with his abandonment issues and the trauma of Daniel's betrayal. He calls me twice a week now and we're slowly rebuilding our relationship. Last week he got a new job at a smaller tech company. The pay isn't as good as his previous position but he seems more grounded. Daniel apparently tried reaching out again last month. He sent Jonah a long email about how he had changed and wanted to make things right. This time Jonah didn't fall for it. He blocked Daniel's email and number. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we have to learn through experience. Martha says I'm being too cautious with Jonah, that a mother's love should be unconditional. But I've learned that setting boundaries isn't the opposite of love, sometimes it's the purest form of it. Jonah and I are both healing, just separately this time. Maybe that's what we both needed all along.